Hello dear students, my name is العزيز بودلال. I'm a professor at the Department of English at the Faculty of Letters and Human Sciences in Bnsuoc, Casablanca. Now today in this presentation, so I'll be talking about the strategies for completing a successful doctoral dissertation. Now this is a presentation addressed to all doctoral students, irrespective of the department of affiliation. Okay, so I hope you'll enjoy and benefit from the presentation. I'll give you an overview of the presentation itself. So there are 8 major sections. So the first section deals with the doctoral proposal and its restructuring. The second deals with academic rigor. In section 3 I'll be talking about time management, and then in section 4 the writing the doctoral dissertation itself, and then I'll be talking about language, style and mechanics before talking about the different components of the dissertation. And after that I'll be talking about publishing the dissertation, and finally I'll talk about the preparation for the let me just inform you right from the start that the objective of this presentation is to suggest practical strategies for all of the graduate students in humanities in order to successfully complete their doctoral dissertations. The strategies that I'll be talking about are based on my professional experience, both as a doctoral dissertation supervisor, so in my capacity as a supervisor, and then as a member of a number of defense committees. Okay, so these strategies are also based on my interaction with different faculty members, both in Morocco and abroad. Okay, so when you're accepted to a doctoral program, okay, so you're accepted based on a proposal that you have submitted along with your dossier. So the proposal itself might not be well elaborated. So when you're accepted, sometimes you just you start working on the proposal that you submitted for your okay, so we're going to look at that particular proposal and see how you can restructure it in such a way that it paves the way for you to write your own dissertation. So it's very important that you look at the doctoral proposal that you submitted and take a number of aspects into consideration. Okay, so when you start working in your dissertation, the first thing you need to, when you are accepted to a doctoral program, the first thing you need to look at along with your supervisor is take time to rewrite your initial proposal, and these rewritings should be based on a number of criteria. So when you rewrite your doctoral proposal, you should bear in mind that your proposal should have a socio-economic value. Okay, so you're not going to write a dissertation just for mere intellectual exercise. So if you write something, then it should have a value within the socio-economic environment you're in. It should also have a value because when you write a dissertation, then you write it for the purpose to inform policymakers of probably change that you would like them to undertake or something like that. It should also be well situated. The proposal should be well situated within a field of research. It should address a particular field of research or a combined combined fields. But it should be, when you write, when you read a dissertation or at least a proposal, then you should be able to identify that the proposal is about this particular field of research. Okay, sometimes we come across a proposal that cannot be really identified. Okay, so when you rewrite your proposal, you should do it in such a way that you write it into dissertation chapters or sections. Okay, so that when you're done with the research proposal, you know how many chapters at least your dissertation should consist of. Okay, and it should be also, the chapters or sections should be centered around a set of questions. Generally, these are the research questions that you set from the beginning. And also, once you've done this, then you should decide on a realistic defense date. Okay, why should we think about defense right from the start while restructuring the proposal? And of course, if you don't have a timeline, you're not gonna be working like, you're not working within a structured time. So you're not being very categoric. So you need to say, okay, fine, I'm going to give myself like 4 or 5 years to finish this dissertation. And when you have this objective in mind, then you have to work in order to achieve that objective in the number of years that you have set right from the beginning. So again, once you have reached doctoral proposal should look something like this. Okay, so when you look at it, then it should be framed within a body of research. Okay, so you situate your research within the body of research, that's the literature dealing with that particular topic you're researching in your doctoral dissertation. Okay, your new look doctoral proposal should have a theoretical value. Okay, so it's not simply like just dealing with a particular aspect, but it should also be it should also have a theoretical value and contribute to the enriching of a particular theory that you're adopting. It should also be preferably, but of course not necessarily, related to your the research you conducted at the master's level. Generally, like if you have done a good master's thesis, then you should take benefit from the results that you have achieved, and try to start from the result and move on to something even larger. Okay, but sometimes there are people who would prefer not to pursue research in related to the master's level and start anew. That takes time, and of course it takes a lot of time and energy to work on something different. The last thing that your new look doctoral proposal should consist of, it should be part of a coherent project. Okay, so doctoral project is one in which you don't have only dissertation work, but you should also prepare for conferences and also write articles before you So next thing, after the new look proposal, next thing we're going to talk about is academic third, third aspect we're going to talk about is time management. It's extremely important to manage your time. As I said, this is your dissertation is your top priority, and if it is top priority, then you have to decide to commit to working on your dissertation for at least 5 days a week. Okay, so if you work on that 5 days, that's your priority. It's as if you had a job and you need to go to your job on a daily basis, except probably for the weekend, where you take time, for a break. So you have to seize the momentum, and as we say, momentum is really magic, and you have to take advantage of that. So if you commit to working on your dissertation at least 5 days a week, then you have to commit to working on the dissertation the same amount of money, probably 5 to 6 hours a day. You say, this is what I'm going to do, and you have to do it. I mean, it's not like theoretically, saying, well, I should work 6 days, but 6 hours a day. You have to work 6 working hours on your dissertation. Okay, and those 5-6 hours a day that you spend on your dissertation are what we call protected dissertation time. Say, for example, if you're working 6 hours, like 3 hours in the morning and 3 hours in the afternoon, depending on the type of person you are. There are people who could work up to 6 hours or more. So decide on what is good for you, like splitting those 6 hours, or even you can go beyond 6 hours, splitting them over the morning and afternoon, or morning and evening, okay, depending, as I said, on the type of person you are and the time you prefer to work on your dissertation, and call that your protected dissertation time. So you're not gonna be doing anything during that protected time. Of course, you need to be realistic about the timeline to avoid discouragements. You're not gonna say, I'm going to work 10 hours a day or 14 hours a day on my dissertation, but you end up working like 2 or 3 hours, or sometimes not even look at your dissertation work. So again, in order to be very structured in your work, then you need to write a task list of the do's and the don'ts. Okay, what you're supposed to do, okay, and what you're not supposed. Now, the fourth aspect that we're going to talk about in this presentation is writing the dissertation itself. So when you are in the process of writing dissertation, okay, so I'm sure that this is something you do even without me telling you to do it or asking you to do it. So you need to review other dissertations in the field of research, before you start your own. Okay, see how dissertations are written and how they are structured and outlined, because you learn from other people's dissertations. So whether they're good or bad, if they're good, then you take, you write, you take, the benefits of that dissertation. If it is a dissertation that, that is not really good, then of course you are going to learn from it, and you're not going to write something similar. You need to start writing sessions by writing what you already know. Write what you know. That's why people generally start with the review of the literature, because that's something you have read and you have knowledge about what you have read. So do that first. Generally, you often have students coming after 2 years or more, and saying, well, I find difficulty writing. So you're not gonna jump directly to the analysis. Start what you know about the topic. What is, just write. Okay, so there is your supervisor is there to guide you. Your fellow doctoral students are also there, to tell you, to help you write and decide what is appropriate to write and what is not appropriate. So just write, and there are people who could show you whether what you have written is appropriate or not. So when you write, create outlines for each chapter. This is my outline. This is the outline of this chapter, and this is what I'm going to be writing about. And be ready to modify your outline as you learn more about your topic. So an outline remains an outline. I mean, that's a working outline, and you can always modify it when you're in the course of writing. So again, save time. Also, when you write your dissertation, you need to save time by focusing your literature search on specific questions based on your outline. You write an outline, you do research. Okay, so when you're looking for information for in the literature, do not read whatever you come across. Try to be very selective, because that saves you time and energy. Okay, so be very selective when you write. You should also save time and energy, right? When you're, this is something that that a number of doctoral students are are suffering from or suffer from. Okay, so please, when you write using Microsoft Word, for example, okay, there are a number of things that you can use in the process of writing. And just when you start writing your first sections, okay, you could make good use of technology to help you write. So you have Microsoft table of content. So you need to set that from the beginning, so that when you want to write the table of content at the end of when you have finished your dissertation, you can generate that automatically. Also, your bibliographical entries. Okay, whenever you want, when in the process of writing, whenever you want to add a reference, write it and set it right from the beginning. And there is a way to do that, and that could help you, generate the bibliographical entries that you need, set, add at the end of the dissertation. Also, if you are using special fonts, okay, so for talking about linguists, for example, people writing special dissertations in phonetics, phonology, in different departments, Arabic, English, French. Okay, so you need to use special fonts that are available at the Summer Institute of Linguistics. So you can download these fonts and install them and use them, like to transcribe words. Okay, so the most important thing is that you need to let Microsoft Word do things for you when this can be done automatically, and it's doable. You just need to ask. You can you can do that yourself. Just Google anything that is difficult for you to understand. Go to YouTube and have ways how to use Microsoft Word for the table of contents or citation and organization of. Next aspect in the writing of the dissertation that you need to bear in mind is the use of language and the style and mechanics, right? So in writing, irrespective of the language that you're using, Arabic, English, French, Spanish, okay, so you need to use standard academic language. So the standard academic language should be clear, unambiguous, and objective. Okay, so objective, you need to your arguments need to be clear. I mean, you might take a position if you defend a certain argument, but the language has to be clear and unambiguous. The style itself should be formal, concise, and adequate. So non-idiomatic expressions should be avoided. And again, the chapters need to be balanced. You should not write a chapter that is 100 pages long and another that is 40 pages long. Okay, so the chapters need to be more or less balanced. You should again avoid including long quotations in your dissertation. Okay, so you may refer to research that's been done before, but you need to make your voice audible. You're not going to repeat what other people have said. Then you have to comment on what people have said, and place yourself with respect to what these researchers have done. So in the writing of your dissertation, you need to edit, proofread, and spell check your work. Okay, so you're not gonna submit a dissertation that is full of mistakes and errors. So when you're done, or even when you're writing the process, when you are in the writing process, you should have other people read and proofread your work. Okay, generally not 2, not 3, as many people as you can. That guarantees at least that you're not gonna have so many errors or mistakes. So even with this number of people, okay, so you end up. Now next we'll move to in this section to talk about the components of doctoral dissertation. So once the doctoral dissertation has been okay, the first of these components is the abstract. So the abstract is the last part of the dissertation that you need to write. Okay, when you write the abstract, you should observe certain basic elements. The first one, the context, the purpose, why you're doing that research, the research questions that you're trying to answer in your doctoral dissertation, the method or methods followed in answering this research question, what are the main results obtained and their implication. Okay, your abstract should talk about all of these elements. Okay, so the absence of one of these elements makes it an inappropriate abstract. Okay, so the abstract, and of course depending on the department you're affiliated to, so you should provide a translation of the abstract in 2 languages preferably. Okay, so if you belong to the Arabic department, then you should provide an abstract in French and English. If you belong to the English department, then you should provide an abstract in Arabic and French, etc., etc. Okay, so the abstract again you should not forget to include 3 to 5 keywords in the abstract. Dissertation that you need to look at is the theoretical framework. So a dissertation without a relevant theoretical framework, okay, is of very limited value. Okay, so this is the reality. The number of dissertations are simply descriptive and do not analyze anything, because they don't have a theoretical framework. Okay, so that's part of the contribution. Okay, so if you don't have a theoretical framework, then you should not expect any contribution whatsoever in the dissertation. And remember that the adopted framework needs to be appropriated again to account for the phenomena described and analyzed in your dissertation. So if you have a theoretical framework, you're not gonna keep it as it is. So it might be modified in order to account for for the phenomena that you're trying to describe and analyze. And it is that modification that now in addition to the abstract and theoretical framework, there are the discussion chapters or sections. Okay, dissertation needs to consist of discussion chapters. Okay, so these discussion chapters or sections account for the results obtained from your own standpoint of view. So when you discuss, you always discuss from your own standpoint of view. Okay, as I said before, you might even have to revisit the theoretical framework in light of the results obtained. Okay, so the theoretical framework should not, you should not be very rigid and stick to the main theoretical tenets of the main tenets of the theoretical framework, but you might modify them, as I said, okay, in light depending on the results that you have obtained. You should also refer to the literature reviewed. Okay, you reviewed the literature you reviewed, reached a certain conclusion that is different, or reached results that are different from the results that you have achieved. So you need to show that. Like if you get this, you obtain the same finding, then you have to say that your finding corroborate the findings of previous researchers. If not, if it's the opposite, then you have to show that. You should question the claims in this previous research, in the previous. The implications, in addition to the abstract theoretical framework discussion chapters, you need to the dissertation, the other component of the dissertation is the implications. So a good doctoral dissertation should conclude with implications, and these implications should match the results obtained. Okay, so also the implications need to inform the practitioners. So what are we doing with the results and the implications? If we don't inform the practitioners, this is what we got, this is what you need, why should we inform them to take action? If you're calling for a change, like say talking about the educational reform, and you call for a change, then that's directly addressed to practitioners. Also policy makers, if it is something that the results that you have achieved should be communicated to policy makers in order to take them into consideration in future policies. Okay, so a good doctoral dissertation should also conclude with implications that suggest further research. So you have done a certain research that allowed you to inform practitioners, policy makers, but also to point to directions where research is lacking. And that's, the fact of pointing to direction is in itself a contribution, because you're allowing other researchers that come in after you to work on aspects that you haven't dealt with in your applications. Your doctoral work should also point out to the limitations of research. Of course, doctoral research, despite the fact that it might be really enriching and comprehensive in a sense, but also, this is a doctoral dissertation should have limitations in terms of the scope of the study. And a sample, for example, the scope, you have dealt with only 3 aspects in your dissertation. Okay, so you left other aspects for future research. Also, the sample that you have chosen for study and research is very limited in number, because given the dissertation, you cannot go beyond a sample consisting of say, like the sample consists that you have chosen consists, for example, of 100, 200 students. You cannot go beyond, because there is no way for you to, deal with the sample beyond that. So, and you should point out that. Okay, you should also point out to the limitations relating to the data collection instrument. Okay, so and it should in no way undermine your research, but that's part of doing research. So you have, of course, to set clear your achievement, and of course the results that you have achieved, but also point out to the limitations, and of course work. Also, the one of the components of the dissertation is the bibliography. Okay, you should vary your sources. Okay, you should not draw heavily on one or several references. So your references need to be varied. You should combine old references and new ones. And of course, you should have both the classics in the your field of research, and more recent research. Okay, so you're not going to be, so updated references need to, take you up to the moment of defense. So also, among your references, you should have research articles, books, master's thesis, doctoral dissertations. So that's what we mean by varied references. Okay, your research should also include online research or resources. Okay, online resources in addition to paper-based resources. That was the last thing in our section dealing with components of the dissertation. Now remember, one aspect that I'd like to talk about in this presentation relating to is the one relating to publishing the dissertation itself. So here I should talk about two phases. The first one is before you defend your dissertation. Okay, so remember, when you are in the process of writing your dissertation, you need to publish, and publication is a partial fulfillment of the requirements for your doctoral degrees. So most of the universities in Morocco here require that you have at least 2 publications before you submit your dissertation for publications. So that's why you need to publish aspects of your doctoral project while you are writing the dissertation. So your published research activities should cohere into a well-determined research program. Okay, so you're not going to publish something outside your dissertation. Whatever you publish needs to be directly relevant to your doctoral dissertation. Okay, so when you publish, you publish papers, start first with doctoral symposia. Okay, that's I stress on doctoral symposia because that's an event that is organized, within Morocco, and the speakers, all of the researchers are doctoral students. So you shouldn't fear of presenting in front of your doctoral research fellows, because these are people you learn from, and each one learns from the experience of the other. So first publish, write papers in doctoral symposia, and then you can move on to national. Also, the other part of the publication, publishing the doctoral dissertation, even when you defend your dissertation. So before you defend it and after you defend, you need to bear in mind that you need the publication for a number mainly for your job hand. So after the defense, publication maximizes your chances for job hand. Like if you're looking to work as a professor at university or at a research center or at one of the ministries like Ministry of Planning, and I'm talking about geographers and sociologists. So these people are might work in different departments, not just at university and research centers. Okay, so bear in mind that publication is extremely important before and after the defense. Okay, so after the defense you need to publish paper based on your defended doctoral dissertation. So you have your doctoral, so probably from each chapter you might want to choose like to write 2 papers based on one of the chapters. Okay, you know that aspects that need further elaboration, you can work on those chapters and extract like a couple of articles from each chapter. You should also now you move on to the next step. If you've had experience in doctoral symposia and national and international conferences, now you can publish in refereed or peer-reviewed journals. Although there are doctoral students that publish even before they defend their doctoral dissertation. You can also, if you become experienced enough, you can publish in indexed journals. Okay, so you should, but always bear in mind that when you publish research activities that are really coherent into a particular program. So you're not going to publish here and there in different disciplines. So as a doctoral student or a newly doctorate holder, I mean, you need to focus. Focus is deal with one aspect relating to a particular field of research, and that's the field you've been researching. The last thing that we're going to talk about is preparing for the defense. So when you have finished writing and submitted your dissertation for defense, then you need, probably not even when you have finished, you might do that a lot, way before you finish. Attend defenses before your own in order to get you familiar with the general atmosphere of dissertation defense. You need to prepare. Okay, when you have submitted your dissertation and waiting for defense day, you need to you need to prepare your presentation, and you need to prepare it as if you're preparing for a conference paper. Okay, so rehearse your presentation and make sure that you abide by the time frame allocated to you. Generally, like the president of the jury in a viva generally grants you something like 20 minutes to present your work, your dissertation. So abide by those 20 minutes, because if you go beyond that, then the members of jury might have a different view about you yourself. The first of this view is that you don't you haven't respected the time allocated to you. You should also know the limitations. When you're getting ready for the defense, you need to know the limitations of your doctoral research. Okay, and you know the limitations, so prepare for these limitations in advance. Okay, and be ready to answer any this presentation. I'd like to reiterate that writing doctoral dissertation is a unique event that happens, and not everyone can go through the stages of writing dissertations. So you are very lucky that you're among those privileged students who were able to go up to the doctoral stage. So the completion and defense of your doctoral dissertation marks your transition from a doctoral student to a doctorate holder. So it's really a wonderful feeling to be a doctor, and you will experience that once you have defended your dissertation. Okay, so once you have defended it, then think of pursuing doctoral research. Okay, so postdoctoral research should be one of your primary concern if you intend to take up teaching at university, for example, or at your research center, like for example معهد التعريب أو معهد الدراسات الإفريقية. Okay, so or any other research center. Okay, also postdoctoral research should allow you to keep abreast of the latest development in your field of research. Are the references that I have used, okay, in addition to, you know, again, as I said, experience, you know, personal experience, but these two references contain other references and websites that you can refer to for further research. Okay, so if you have any questions, I'd be ready to answer them. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Professor Bensoukas, and thank you, Professor Zerura. Good evening, everyone. I hope you're fine and doing well and staying safe wherever you are. Before I get started, let me make a couple of notes regarding the select list of tips that I'll be suggesting here. First, this video post, I must say, is not meant to serve as a substitute for what your supervisor is normally supposed to provide you with. The tips that I will be suggesting here are simply the fruit of a long experience, I would say, in doctoral revision and supervision. And the list is not exhaustive and does not pretend to do so. For example, if you Google how to write a PhD, you'll find thousands of links out there. And I advise you to do that, as a matter of fact. And this is why I would focus here on the pre-writing stages, which I divide in basically 3 stages. Now, as with all forms of writing, you need to be organized. I'm not going to talk about the need for you to develop study habits, etc., for instance. This is something that you have, you must have learned this, in your study skills classes, as well as in your methodology class. To be organized would mean to structure your thesis and set up a plan for when you will be completing one chapter or another. and try to discipline yourself, as a matter of fact, into completing one chapter or another, and try to perform what you intend to do, what you plan to do, in accordance with a specific plan. So you, in other words, you have to put in place a certain roadmap. Of course, you have a comfortable time span to do this, and all you need is to manage your time as efficiently as possible. I think it's all about discipline and devotion, and it all comes in stages, actually, one stride after another. Now, in stage one, the question here is, when do you really need to structure your thesis? Well, the answer would be then when you have collected enough material to do so. To my mind, you could start to do so when you have done enough brainstorming, as I said, and read as many books and articles as you could lay hand on. Things that relate to your topic somehow, immediately or not. It's only when you have gathered what I would call the matériaux de pensée, the tools of thinking, that you will be able to do so. I take 1 year or so on this. It's not a problem. No rush at this stage, at least. I take my time to reflect on this at this stage, because this is the stage when you collect your data, you put the references in one card, the essential quotations in another, and anything that you deem to be relevant to what you're doing in your dissertation. Now, of course, all of this should be conducted in light of your thesis statement. It should be conducted in light of your thesis statement, your hypothesis, or whatever critical inquiry you engage in. That is, what is it that you want to do exactly? This should be clear in your mind. And at this stage, you need to constantly ask yourself, or yourselves now, 3 questions. Where am I now? Where do I want to go? And how shall I go there? And the best tactic, in other words, you will be strategizing all the time. And the best tactic to achieve these good results, I would say, is to adopt what is known as the small wins strategy. In other words, you have to take time to reflect on your research questions, think of possible answers, try to erase all ambiguity about your research problem, visualize how you will structure your thesis, and carve out a line of thought that you will be sharing with your reader. Now, the second stage, this is a stage where I would consider a student, like a blind person trying to find their way in the dark. Now it's the time when you need to be really more organized, because you have at your disposal, supposedly so, all the guiding light that you need to move forward. First, sit back and write an extended outline. An extended outline means that you have to flesh out all the ideas that you have brainstormed, the research questions that you have formulated, the possible findings, etc., in the form of an extended outline. That is a detailed one. You'll have to say exactly what you want to do in the introduction. Now, I would say this and that, A, B, and C, etc. Not just leave the introduction behind and move on to the body of your dissertation. In other words, you'd have to have a clear idea, and this should be, written down, about what is it exactly you will be saying in the, concerning the background behind your research interests, the rationale behind choosing the topic. That is very, essential. That is the reason or the motivation behind the writing. Your own contribution, that is essential. the methodology to be adopted to conduct your research, whether it's descriptive or quantitative, qualitative, or a mixed method approach. No, there's plenty of books out there, and I'm sure your supervisor will recommend some good titles out there. Now, the key concept that you will be using also have to be somehow explained in the course of your introduction, probably also the first chapter, and anything that, and of course the theoretical framework, because that is essential to the overall dissertation. And anything you say at this stage must have some bearing, and this is important. No, please, no, this is really essential. Anything that you say in terms of theoretical background, anything that you say at the beginning in the theoretical framework should have some bearing on and should be related to what I would call, quote unquote, the practical part of your dissertation, which is basically the logical extension of the theoretical framework. Very often, and this is from experience, very often candidates fill up spaces with theory. They don't have a problem with that because there's lots of material out there. So, but when it comes to practice as such, well, I see very often there's no connection. So your paper, in other words, must be balanced. Your ideas must be graded, and always bear in mind that you will be that you're writing to someone that you need to interact with on a constant, on a regular basis, and that is your reader. You say that to your reader, this is what I have completed, and now I would take you to another place or at another area of my research, and see, I have already told you that, things like that. It's only in this way that that your dissertation will be in technical terms be coherent and cohesive. Now this of course cannot be had if you if you don't have a clear vision of what you want to do. And and this is why I personally insist that I have my students write down a detailed or an extended outline before they're given the green light. I was going to say the red light, the red light, because when they're given the green light actually to start writing. And believe me, once you have a good command of the extended outline, the rest is easy. So in other words, right. So in other words, you take care of the extended outline, and the rest is easy. Now I move on to the third, right, the third stage. As you can see, I'm going to talk about the overall structure, where I recommend, that students adopt what I would call a granular approach. I will explain what that means in a while. Now, the third stage would be to take a granular approach to your dissertation, working in piecemeal fashion, that is, on each chapter, beginning with the introduction, which you could leave until the end if you wish. Okay, whichever way you do it, actually leave it at the end to start off with it. You will ultimately have to revisit in the introduction in light of the novel things, I would say, that you have included in your body of the dissertation as a result of your research and reading, etc. Okay, so as I said, you will discover new things. You will have to do some reading with and of course you will have to somehow do some make some changes actually to the overall line of thought. So you immerse yourself in your writing. This is the time when you start immersing yourself in the writing, and you will just chapter by chapter, flesh out ideas, go chapter by chapter, and regularly check if you've missed anything out there, any recent documents, you can use, etc. And for the sake of, again, for the sake of cohesion and coherence, for the sake of cohesion and coherence, always wrap up. And yeah, this is my, yeah, this is stage 3, right? Okay. And for the sake of cohesion and coherence, always, all right, I insist on this, always wrap up a chapter with a conclusive statement and prepare the reader for what you're going to be doing next, that is in the next chapter. Okay, your aim, what you aim to achieve in the, right. Also, at this pre-writing stage, you need to decide in concert with your supervisor, of course. You need to decide on the kind of you know, manual or style sheet that you want to use. You know, whether you want to use the MLA, the Moroccan language, the Modern Language Association, or the APA, which is you know, the American Psychologist, right? Association, whichever you right, you want to adopt. I mean, I have no problem personally. I don't see a big difference. You know, as long as you're content with one, then that's fine. Okay, so if you prefer, for example, use MLA, it's okay. But if you have to be, you know, if PA have to be consistent, you have then to take some time to practice using one or the other. That's important. And of course, there's plenty of material out there that you can use that will guide you in how to use one or the other. Okay, no time to write. Your supervisor will recommend one or two for you. Finally, do some benchmarking, you know, out there. Go check out some PhD dissertations out there. In your area of specialty, more preferably, you know, just to see what's out there, and stay away from far-fetched topics, you know, because yeah, you want to make a contribution. You don't want to complicate life for you as well as for the reader, as well as for the supervisor, you know, because the supervisor is really has to also and not to suffer, you know, from what you're doing. And one last thing perhaps is, you know, as far as contribution is concerned, you need to debunk, you know, always, you know, try to debunk things for your reader, and debunk things that and like, and you would say to your reader, like you know, things that they have not been familiar with, or you know, you defamiliarize them, you demystify things for them, you know, so much so that they, you know, they end up by saying something like, "Oh, really? I didn't know that." Okay, if you can come to if you can arrive at, you know, getting a reader to say, "Oh, really? I didn't know." Right, then I didn't know that. Then you have, you know, been successful. That's it. Thank you very much. Okay, thank you. Okay, here's one last. All right. Okay. All the best to you. Thank you very much. All right, now I give the floor to Professor Bensoukas.
Okay, thank you, Professor Kérimi, for your very nice talk, and I think it has paved the ground to the coming presentations, mine, and that's by Professor Zurra later on. So I'll just take a few moments to upload my presentation. Here we go. All right, so my presentation is on doing doctoral research in linguistics. And what I will try to do in this presentation is provide more of general guidelines that students could use. These could also work for other areas of specialization, but my focus in this presentation is more on linguistics. Okay, so the way I'll proceed is the following. I'll just point the fact that students need to know at least the basics of different fields of linguistics. They also need a basic functional knowledge in the, for example, the sociolinguistic situation of the country that they're working on. In our case, for example, if you're working on the languages in Morocco, you need to know what the sociolinguistic situation in Morocco is exactly. And I'll spend a few minutes on research methods in linguistics, and I'll finish with data. I'll be talking about transcription and glossing, two different skills that are mostly needed in doing linguistic research. So I'll start with the fields of linguistics. So it's my belief that every student who embarks on a doctoral research at in linguistics should have a good knowledge of the different fields of linguistics. There's no terrible thing than probably talking about things that we don't understand. In my experience, I feel that people might be doing, for example, something like applied linguistics or sociolinguistics, and they will need concepts from syntax or from phonology or from morphology, and they just, whatever they write in their dissertations betrays their lack of mastery of the basic concepts. Things I've seen range over people presenting data from standard Arabic and then claiming it is from Moroccan Arabic, for example. People discussing phonological concepts, but they confuse them, if you see what I mean. So I think that a good knowledge of the field of linguistics is always very important. And if you're working on a very special field, I think you need to have a good mastery of it. Okay. Now you also need a good knowledge of the specific field of linguistics investigated. If you're working on any one of the theoretical or formal linguistics fields, areas of investigation, like phonetics, phonology, morphology, syntax, etc., you really need a good specific knowledge of that field. If you're doing like applied linguistics or sociolinguistics or whatever field you're interested in, a good knowledge is always a prerequisite. And then, of course, for you to be able to analyze data and present your work in a convincing way, you need to have a good knowledge of the theoretical apparatus and to have a good mastery of the data you're presenting. And then you also need to have an awareness of the relevant textbooks, handbooks, journals, databases, online resources. These are the things that I will be presenting right now. There are also like manuscripts, what some people used to call underground literature or gray literature, whatever the term means, which simply refers to works that are unpublished, like dissertations or paper manuscripts. You should be able to distinguish these types of works and also be able to judge which ones you can start with first off, and which ones are relevant to you and which ones are not. So when it comes to fields of linguistics, the first thing that you can probably start with if you're at a loss is grab a good textbook. And now all good publishing houses have comprehensive textbooks. And these at times come in different editions. And from one edition to the next, of course, the book improves tremendously. We have plenty of examples. I'm just giving you one house of publication here. You have an introduction to phonology, to pragmatics, morphological theory, etc. And these are really, really like comprehensive. I've used some of these in my areas of interest. And believe me, they really work. Of course, this is just one house of publication. There are others which are just as good. Now, the other thing you can use to start with is encyclopedias. There are very nice recent encyclopedias available. I'm giving you a few examples here. The one in blue, the Encyclopedia of Language and Linguistics, the second edition, comes in 14 volumes. I mean, like this encyclopedia covers pretty much everything you have in the field. And what is interesting about these encyclopedias is that the lemmas, the entries, the lemmas are contributed by authorities in the field. which makes it really more interesting and more reliable. It makes them interesting and reliable. If you compare, for example, the way encyclopedias are done now with the way they used to be done, there is a huge difference. In the early days, encyclopedias used to be written by a limited number of people, each one contributing a number of lemmas, and that's the way it worked. Now, what people do is that they invite specialists, authorities in the field. For example, you want people to deal with a special aspect of sociolinguistics, you call on real sociolinguists who have a good experience in the field, who are very knowledgeable of whatever is going on, etc. So I used a few entries from this very encyclopedia in my research and in my teaching. And believe me, it's really a good place to start, and it's even for professionals, not only for students. Even for professionals, it's really a good place to start. Now, the other type of references you have out there are handbooks. Again, all good publishing houses have comprehensive handbooks. If you are not familiar with the concept of handbooks, this is a collection of papers that deal with a specific field. You have a few examples here. So what you have is papers dealing with the state of the art. These are generally invited papers, contributions, and the authors are asked to present the field in as detailed and as updated a manner as possible. And normally, if you grab, you're working on bilingualism, for example, or linguistic anthropology, grab one of these handbooks. This is, again, just one house of publication. There are others. If you grab one of these and you read relevant portions of it, I'm sure that you can have a very good start. Of course, you can always check the bibliography, because the writer of each chapter will just be sending you to other references that are already available in there. Now, the most difficult thing to read are journal papers. This is where the research is really taking place. And all fields of linguistics have one or more established journals. You have examples here: applied linguistics, phonology, journal of pragmatics, word structure, which deals with morphology. There is a journal entitled Morphology, by the way, brain and language, you name it. There are plenty more that I cannot really list here. One tip I can give is just Google the name of the field or the area of specialization along with the word journal. For example, Journal of Linguistics, and you'll get plenty of journals that are out there. And then you can also use just the name of the field. Linguistics, you have a journal. Sociolinguistics, you have a journal. Phonology, you have a journal. Pragmatics, you have a journal. Applied linguistics, you have a journal. Phonetics, you have a journal. So these are things that are available. It's good to check them out. And as you're doing research, this is really, as I said, where you get the most recent developments in the field. Of course, publication takes some time, so there might be like a 1 year between the date of submission and the real date of publication. And in the meantime, some necessary, not necessarily, but some good changes, some important changes may have taken place in the field. Now here it's a different story. You have to find ways of getting to international conferences. That's where also you get the information you need. Now, in addition to these are publications, books. You can have them in paper format. You can have them in online formats. Never mind. There are also plenty of databases you can use, or platforms. Now, research databases, one you can start with is JSTOR. Now, JSTOR gets you almost everything that is out there. You get thousands of hits when you try to Google something, but it's a good place to start. The other thing you could use is get to the option of JSTOR where you check the individual journals. Now, JSTOR has a little problem. It's most of the journals are not really updated, so you always have a 5-year limit on the journals, in the sense that you can only have access to issues that are published 5 years ago or something like that. For some of the journals, you get for some of the journals, you get access to the most recent ones. EBSCOhost is a good one. Project Muse is more like that's where you get journals on formal linguistics. But these are really important databases that you, of course, these are just examples. Get to know them, get to see how you can access them, and get to know how to exploit them. There are more data-oriented databases. I'm giving you a few examples here. The first one is L'aménagement linguistique dans le monde, hosted by the University of Laval in Canada. Now, what this does is it simply gives you a good presentation of the language planning, language policy of almost each and every country in the world. And take my word for it, you can just go there and check, like for example, under the rubric of Morocco, for example, go check Morocco. You'll find, and this is of course a website which is updated every now and then. You'll find pretty much the latest texts that relate to language planning, etc. And this really like gets you everything. It's really like a good place to start if you're doing this kind of thing. Ethnologue talks about the different languages of the world. It comes in a paper version. The Universals Archive, you have this is a database you can consult. It deals with universals in phonology and morphology, syntax, etc. So this is kind of an update of the types of universals that are available depending on the published literature, etc. Same thing for the World Atlas of Language Structures online. Of course, these are just a few things. It depends. I try to show you different things like structures, that's more like the structure of the language. L'aménagement linguistique, that's more like sociolinguistics. The universals, it's kind of related to the structures, etc. Ethnologue can give you the historical background on languages and much more. These are just examples, as I said again. So as you move on with your research, get to know which databases you can use and exploit them. Now, there are also platforms. The Linguist List is very interesting. You can, by the way, just enroll somehow. You become a member, and there you can get all types of information. For example, the recent conferences. There are hundreds or probably thousands of linguistics conferences going on in the world, and most people would publish on the Linguist List because this is a very good means of distributing, of disseminating information, of sharing information. So go check it. It has publications also. They have, because this is the Summer Institute of Linguistics in the United States, and they have like lists of journals. They have publications of their own. They have a lot of information concerning conferences, etc. And it's very easy to use, by the way. It's user-friendly. Academia and ResearchGate and ORCID. Now, this is one way in which people can share their research. You can create your own pages as well later. But here you can also like consult these, and they give you a lot of downloadable papers. Of course, you know that you can use Google Scholar specifically for this type of research, but these really like get more. You can get to the individual pages of researchers. In Morocco, we have this EMIST, which is hosted by the Centre National de Recherche Scientifique et Technique in Rabat. And there you have plenty of Moroccan journals that are available online for free. So you can download materials, etc. And just go and check. The linguistics ones are really interesting. So one thing is you get information from these journals, but you can also find ways of publishing with these people, which is a good thing. So just get to know how to use it, what the options are that are available to you, and I think it's a good place to start. The second point I would like to talk about is the basic functional knowledge you have about languages and the linguistic situation in the country, for example, in our case, Morocco. What I mean by basic functional knowledge is, for example, the sociolinguistic situation, the historical background of the language families we have, or the phyla also, the language policy of the country, language and education policy, etc. So these are more like, this is more like a general background, linguistic background that you need to know so that you become functional as a linguist. The sociolinguistic situation, of course, we have native languages in Morocco, we have official languages, we have foreign languages, there's multilingualism, and there's diglossia. Now, knowing this will make you at a first stage very functional as a linguist, but you can also like see ways in which you can find research areas in these. Whatever your field of research, you know, language is not one monolithic type of entity. So there are plenty of things that interact with each other. If you're working on formal linguistics, you might find yourself working on sociolinguistics or applied linguistics, and vice versa. So if you know these things, like this basic functional knowledge in linguistics, it can just make you a better researcher, if you see what I mean. The historical background is also interesting. The language families we speak in Morocco, native languages, I'm talking about the mother tongues, are of an Afro-Asiatic origin. But there's also language contact that has been there for a long time between the native languages and between native and foreign languages. And this, of course, can help you when you're doing research. With this perspective, you can always find ways of solving problems that cannot be solved on the basis of the language itself. You have to look for external evidence. You have to check what the influence is from other languages, etc. Now, language policy in Morocco, of course, we have been adopting the Arabization policy since independence. There is a change in the current language policy. Maybe you have heard of the recent publication of the legal text on the National Council of Languages and Culture. This is what remained like pending in the Constitution, Article 5 of 2011. So this was finally released at the beginning of April, and we're now expecting more language planning institutions to be created in Morocco. Language and education policy, we have different school languages, we have different language departments. Languages of instruction, you should check them. We're using Arabic, we're using French, we're using English as languages of instruction in general, depending on what school you have. And then you also have like languages of instruction in different departments, etc. You just need to know what is going on exactly. Now, the third point is before it's not before, but while you're doing your research, actually, even before, you can start with this, and then it's something that is going on as you progress in your research. Research methods in linguistics are an important skill to have. Now, what happens in here is that formal linguistics methodology is different from applied linguistics methodology. Now, in formal linguistics, the way you deal with phonological data is not the way you deal with morphological data, is not the way you deal with syntactic data, etc. In applied linguistics, it depends. You can have like different types of designs. It's up to you to find out what the best methodology is in your case. Learn about data collection methods in each field, because they might be different from one field to the next. Learn about data analysis skills. As I said, these can vary from one field of linguistics to the next. Of course, Professor Kerimi has said that we're not really like giving you what you should follow. This is not really God's truth or whatever. So you have an advisor, and you should be consulting with them in terms of the methodology you use, etc. Still, of course, once you decide on the appropriate methodology, you decide on the type of investigation. You can decide, once you decide on the type of investigation you're doing, you can decide on the appropriate methodology. And references are not really, there are plenty of references. Research methods in linguistics, research methods in second language acquisition, in applied linguistics, in language planning and policy, statistical methods in language and linguistic research. I'm just giving you a few examples. So pretty much each field now has descriptions of how you can go about doing research in it. The last point I'll be dealing with is data, and I'll be focusing on transcription and glossing. Again, more of general guidelines than something particular. When it comes to transcription, we need generally to be able to distinguish phonetic and phonemic transcription, know the special fonts that are there. You can use phonetic keyboards that are available online. You have phonetic transcription apps, especially for English. I'm not sure about other languages, but for English, you have them. So phonetic versus phonemic transcription. Normally, our students at the early levels are aware of what is called broad and narrow transcription, which is pretty much the same thing. So broad transcription is phonemic, narrow is phonetic, where you give the details. So a good working background in the phonology of the languages investigated is really a prerequisite in this case. You need to know the phoneme inventory. This is not for people doing phonology, this is for people who record data. Phoneme inventory is very important. Phonological processes are important. And you need to know the basics of phonology so that what you transcribe does not really sound, does not really kind of betray your ignorance when it comes to this. And what I advise is to pick up the consonant chart or the vowel chart. Try to fill it out with, fill in the details of your language, okay? This is pretty much like what we have at a more universal level. But try to have a chart and have it somewhere visible so that it guides you in your transcription, then you stay consistent with that. There are special fonts that you can use on your computer. Of course, most computers now come with these, but there are problems when you move from one computer to the next. What happens is that the transcription symbols display wrong, and what you could do is use more professional special fonts that you install on your computer, and it makes your work even more professional. You can download plenty of things from the International Phonetic Association website. You have fonts that are meant for Windows. For this is Macintosh, of course, the older version, but still, you can install them on Mac computers, MacBooks, etc. Now, there's also the possibility of online phonetic keyboards. So if you want to transcribe, what you have at the bottom here is actually just a, like where you can, when you type, of course, you just press any one of the symbols and it shows in the table at the bottom. You can just copy that and paste it onto your document, Word or whatever. And these really make transcription easier. Now, one nice thing is the phonetic apps. This is two phonetics. What you have here is more like a Google translation thing, but this is, it works the same way. What you do is you paste your English text there, you choose whether it's British or American English, and then you have a few more options. You click on show transcription, and there you go. Of course, it does not give you an accurate transcription 100%. You still need to go and check it, edit it a little bit. But it does most of the job for you, which is a very nice thing. Now, the second point, I talked about transcription. The second point is glossing. Most of our students kind of do not quite get this when it comes to linguistics. And we have conventions that are already available, like the Leipzig glossing conventions. Okay, there are a few references in there. I give you an example here from Russian. So what you have is, okay, so this is the first line shows you the data from Russian. The last line shows you the translation into English. What matters here is those lines in the middle, which we call interlinear glossing. So there, it's very important to show the structure. Some languages have VSO, word orders. Some have SVO. Some languages have very weird structures. So people who read should be able to follow what the structure looks like. And you do it by this interlinear glossing. Now, of course, as I said, there are plenty of references that show you how you can do this. It's not very difficult, but you need to be consistent when you record your data this way. Now, there are also conventions. You don't need to create your own abbreviations. There are standard abbreviations that everyone probably knows. All you need to say is that you're using the Leipzig glossing conventions or any other type of, this is one type, or any other type of glossing conventions. So that's it pretty much. And I'd like to thank you for your attention. And I would like you to enjoy every step of your research journey. And now I will give the floor to my colleague, Professor Zurura, for the third and last presentation concerning research methodology at the doctoral level. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Professor Bensoukas, and thank you, Professor Keriemi. Good greetings to you all, the new doctoral students. Welcome aboard. Welcome to the university and to the Faculty of Letters and Human Sciences in Rabat. This third presentation in this special webinar that we are addressing to the new cohort of doctoral students. As you've learned from the previous presentations, deals with the basic skills that you need to know or to learn before you launch yourself in the big project of researching your doctoral thesis. Two key moments in the research journey of beginning doctoral students that I would like really to focus on today. First, the time before outlining and drafting the first chapter. This is the focus of my brief presentation here. Then the second moment, or second time, is when you start outlining and drafting the first chapter. This is particularly an important moment in your life as a doctoral student, and this really determines what is going to happen later on in terms of a development of your project. Okay, so the basics of a doctoral research project, what are they? There's a basic know-how that a fresh doctoral student must have. Among them, how does the topic look like? Is it clear? Is it foggy? Is it incomplete? Okay. Of course, you have put forward a proposal based on which the commission accepted you to do your doctoral research at the university. But sometimes, even with the proposal, judging from the previous sittings with new candidates, the proposal is sometimes foggy, too general, too wide, lacking originality, etc. So you need to define and redefine your topic really clearly. Okay, reading primary sources is a must. Definitely you've read some primary sources to produce your proposal, but you need to be very familiar with primary sources, whether they are novels or they are poems, or there's a particular author, or it's a particular cultural theme or cultural problematic. Okay, so that's what I call a fair knowledge of problematic, and what has been written around that problematic should be more or less familiar to you. Okay, and that's what will help you redefine the topic and remove the fogginess or incompleteness from the topic. On the other hand, you have secondary sources, secondary material. This is what constitutes the majority of the bibliographical entries. Okay, in your proposal, you'll be asked to write a bibliography, but this is like a primary basic bibliography. Okay, a sense of the arguments around the topic also must be clear in your head. You have definitely read a number of theoretical works or debates, criticisms around your topic, and that is what I call a theoretical context. You should develop particular, if you, let's say, you are interested in writing about Moroccan feminism, for example. Okay, you need to be familiar with what has been written in the field in Morocco. Okay, so you should have known well and read well Fatima Minichi, for example, but you've read also other articles, other theses by other female feminist writers, but also you should be familiar with what has been written in the area of feminism in England, in America, maybe in Europe also. But since you belong to the English department, just being familiar with what has been written in England and America is enough. Okay. Another thing that is also really basic and key in this process of researching your dissertation, your thesis, is the professional writing skills that very often students suffer from. Okay, and professional writing skills often cause the failure of lots of students in the licence years and in the masters. Sometimes it's pretty technical, okay, that you need to be familiar with. Okay, I propose here the MLA handbook, which is like the Bible for writers and for thesis writers and dissertation writers, and it's like a whole science that people really follow when they are writing papers or writing even books. So you need to develop a strong background knowledge in the area of your research, and this a little bit repeats the idea that I said earlier on. Okay, so these are examples of the handbooks that I was talking about. The MLA handbook is the one that I have been using, that I use myself, and that I recommend to my students. There's also the methodology in the APA style that my colleagues, Professor Keriemi and Professor Bensoukas, talked about earlier on. There's the Chicago manual style, there's the manual for writers, and there are other styles. But the important thing is that make sure you follow one particular style. You don't mix. You don't mix the two. Okay. Even within literature, within cultural study, you have people using both, either the MLA or the APA. Okay? As long as you are consistent and systematic, you're fine. But definitely, your supervisor will be a good guide in telling you which one to adopt. But by the way, as a young scholar, it is always beneficial for you to get to know all these styles and how each one functions, so that when you confuse them, you will know that you are confusing. If you know only one, like making an arrow or jumping from one to the other may not be very clear to you. Okay. All right. Okay. What other challenges really face you in this research journey? I separate between content and form. Okay, a researcher faces two major challenges: the form and the content of the project. Language skills, as I mentioned early on with reference to the MLA and the APA, language skills and mechanics of writing. These are basic skills that you need to revise before you start drafting, you start writing. While you are reading and you're taking notes and then you're collecting information, it is really beneficial to you to spend some time reading those handbooks and revising the mechanics of writing, how you develop your paragraphs, how you write coherent sentences, how you develop an idea. Okay, what are the rules of developing an idea, making a strong, coherent paragraph from one single sentence, one single idea. Then the system of ideas and arguments that really make the background of the topic, which you are going to engage and come up with an original idea that will be your thesis. Question is what to read. At the beginning, hunt for diversified sources. Okay, you may some of the okay, you are writing about the question of race among women in the 19th century Britain, for example. Okay, it would be too far-fetched to go and read about racism in Japan. Okay, it's your yes, limit yourself to the space of England, since you're dealing with 19th century England. And of course, Your research may take you to, I don't know, to Jamaica, to Nigeria, to South Africa, to America, but that is still within the area of your specialty and your research. And then as you read more, and then your thesis becomes much clearer, then you narrow it down to a more manageable topic. Note-taking is an extremely important skill that you need to master, because if you're reading like you're reading 20 books, 30 books, if you're not taking good notes, okay, you're going to forget everything, and it will be very difficult for you later on to put the ideas together in order to construct your argument in coherent chapters. So I call this a technology, note-taking. Okay, note-taking using some tools for this technology like index cards, notebooks, PC files, or a mix of all these. You invent the most convenient technique for you that will allow you to recuperate ideas that you have read, that you have remembered in different places, and put together in order to construct your argument. There is a real problem with linear notes, like on just simple pages in notebooks, or sometimes in simply highlighting important texts or passages in the text, and you think that you're going to come back to those highlighted texts. But then after reading like 5 books, 10 books, 15 books, it'll be very difficult to go back and find those highlighted passages. You need to find ways of collecting them, taking them out of the article, the passages themselves, and putting them together. And later on, like a deck of cards or many decks of cards, you can reshuffle them around, separate them into cards that go into different chapters with different headings, etc. So compiling the bibliography, you can use, of course, such programs as Zotero or other programs that are available here, Microsoft on the computer, but don't start with that. Learn the technique yourself, learn it manually. But once you master it, then you can get the machine to help you speed up the process and do the work. Okay. Make sure you can also locate the sources or the source quickly later on when you need to check a quote reference. Say you have a lot of science, okay? You have it on, say, on an index card or on a notebook, and then you have shoved that block quote in your argument, but then you read it and it's incoherent. There's the word missing. So you have to be able to locate that very quickly in its original source, either PDF article or a book. And therefore, at the end, at the bottom of the index card, you need to cite the source and where the book is. Is it in your library? Is it in the faculty library? Is it in the National Library? Is it on your PDF file somewhere? Is it on your screen? Is it like in a book that a friend has borrowed, or borrowed from a friend of yours, etc. So locating the original idea is extremely important, and it becomes quite serious later on, because sometimes you go crazy if you cannot check the origin of that or the accuracy of that quotation, and you need it, desperately you need it in order to consolidate your argument. And remember, professors, readers, they do check quotation, they do check citation. Sometimes they do it randomly, but they do check. We do check, and very often we find a lot of inaccuracies in the question that the students really start. While doing all, continue thinking about how to improve the topic and where you are leading, where the topic is leading you, or where the argument is leading you, or what arguments are you developing, okay? And how is your thesis original? Remember that you will be required to submit at least 2 articles for publication before you can defend your thesis, and there will be always a commission reading your article before it can be accepted to be published in a peer-reviewed journal. And if it's not original, if it's not contributing any new ideas to the field, then it will be rejected, and you don't want that to happen. So aim for original thinking or originality. Reading lecture sources every information source is a potential research source. Sometimes originality of a thesis comes from the source material that is discovered. This is why I call hunting for relevant material that will contribute to creating an original idea is extremely important. Start with common sources, like Google Scholar, university databases, the internet, JSTOR, paper libraries, books, paper books in library, digital sources. And now, you're so lucky. In the old times, like 40 years ago, we didn't have all this plethora of really resources and the books. So I know life becomes more difficult. The life of the researcher becomes more difficult, but that's life. It's better to have plenty than not having enough. Theses are also a very good source of information for your research. It's also good for you to go and handle some theses that were defended in your field, in your department before you, so that you will see what students before you had produced, and that will give you some good courage and initiative. Okay, popular culture is also depending on the topic again. Popular culture, oral popular culture is very also relevant source of research. Let's say you are writing a thesis on Gnawa culture. Okay, there are some books that have been written by Gnawa, by actually American anthropologists, by also by so need to go and visit brotherhoods and listen to them, transcribe their songs, and use these materials as primary sources for your research. Okay. Also, when you are reading some PDFs or some books, look at the bibliographies at the end of the chapter or the PDF article. Sometimes the bibliographical sources there are an excellent source of inspiration for your reading. So select some titles that you think are relevant to your topic, and then go and Google them and try to locate them and read them, and I'm sure they will enrich your argument. Soft sources are now more as important, like YouTube, ebooks, or lectures, etc., as important as paper references. Check relevance through skimming first. Okay, so of course you say, "Oh my God, I'm just a human. I'm not a machine. How can I read 100 books, 200 books?" No, be methodical. Okay, there is a method. Okay, first, let's say you take a 40-page PDF, and so you're not going to start reading word by word from the first time. Okay, first you read the abstract, read the summary, then you skim through it and see if it is relevant. If it is relevant, you mark it, you put in your bibliography, and then you take time to read it slowly, and you take notes, etc. Then you go back and then you select what to read in depth. Start with summaries and abstract. I said that. Okay. Peer-reviewed publications are usually more reliable sources. Okay. Sometimes you'll find a topic that is dealt with in a blog or in a short article in the journal. Usually that is very superficial treatment of the topic. Better not waste your time on that unless you're dealing with the papers written during a particular period about a particular phenomenon. Okay, like you are looking at the old or the early Moroccan newspapers and how they dealt with the beginning of colonization in Morocco. So you need the newspapers in order to study them and use them in your research. Okay, so use your mind, use your rationality. Okay, so an example of notes taking. Okay, so this is what is called the index cards. Okay, so although you may think it's old-fashioned, but no, it's not. It's very relevant. It will help you organize your ideas later on. You can see, you can clip. You go through the deck of cards, and you can clip those that go together, that can the quotation that can be used in a particular chapter, etc. Some actually in the old times, that's how I did my doctoral thesis like this in 1990, and I worked with these. Actually, I still have some of them at home, like the archives. You use some index cards like this as well for the bibliographical entries, but this was before the time of the computer. Okay, now with the computer, you can go to the file for the bibliography, and you can shove a new title anywhere in the list that is organized bibliographically, and the entries will just space out and get organized by themselves. Okay, all right. Okay, this is another couple of images from more sophisticated note taking, and you can imagine how much time this researcher on the right has really made using index cards an attractive and more professional ways here of exploiting them. Then you have the case on the left-hand side, very traditional, with the notebook, taking notes, you see, on the notebook, but I'm sure that will be very difficult to locate, to use to locate some word or some quotation if you have like 10 notebooks. It's like that, where we have more than a couple of 100 pages, because you take in a notebook for like 5 years, for 3 years, 4 years, then when you are writing your chapters, it will be really very difficult to locate particular quotation. But again, as I said, be inventive, find a methodology that is more relevant to you, that will help you locate the quotation, the references to the sources you're reading. Okay, let me move on. Okay, now we get to the last stage. That's the third stage, as I said, which is the stage of outlining and of drafting those chapters. This is a stage that you will reach maybe after 3 years of reading and researching. This is the time of, it could be maybe after 2 years, but I think that after 2 years is a little bit too early. 3 years is reasonable, judging from the experiences of other students who have finished their doctorates, you see, in the past. Okay, so when you get to this stage, you have accumulated so many, so much material. Okay, so many, like index cards, if you use in the index card, so many quotations, so many commentaries, so many ideas. Okay, so you have become the specialist of that topic that you've been researching, and you've been living with it day and night, having dreams and nightmares about particular ideas, particular authors, particular events, etc., etc. You've lived through periods of anxiety, but also moments of happiness, because you feel that you've progressed and then you have achieved something. Okay, so when you accumulate enough citations, separating the index cards according to the chapter title can help you a great deal in setting your outline. Okay, again, remember, when this is not the first time you're going to write an outline. Okay, so like as you progress, you are drafting some basic general outline with just the basic headings first, and then you are adding subtitles here and there, etc., etc., with the help of your supervisor, with the help of different professors you're discussing, you're talking to, with the help of ideas you've collected from some conferences to relate to your topic, etc., etc. The sky is the limit. The field is very wide there, okay? Very wide there. Okay, so you get to the stage where, before you start writing anything, okay, don't start writing the chapter after the first year. You will regret it, because later on you will be like, you will feel that you're empty. You cannot put the argument together. Okay, wait until you're really full of so many ideas and so many arguments. Then You draft your outline and you redraft it and redraft it and show it to your supervisor. Your supervisor will suggest new ideas. You will write it again until really it becomes really very long. That's why I say maybe even beyond even 10 pages long outline. Maybe if you can reach like even a 20-page long outline, that would be even better. I'll be much happier to see much longer outline, more detailed outline, even with like the subtitles and the subtitles, with the smaller subtitles, okay, with the references to the particular articles that you're going to use in every subhead and under every subtitle, with the page number. Once you have that ready, that's it. You can see really the light, the light at the end of the tunnel. Okay, meaning that your whole thesis is there in your head. It is there in your outline. Okay, the outline is usually generated from the keywords you see in the title of the thesis. Best outlines are very detailed ones, as I said. In a thesis, chapter 1 is usually a review of the literature and research done so far around the thesis topic. Let's say you are adopting a Marxist approach to Conrad. Okay, in your first chapter, you must go through the different schools that have introduced Conrad: formalist, feminist, Freudian, psychoanalyst, and you show the limitations of each one of them. And then you say, well, I am proposing a better approach to Conrad, which is a colonial, post-colonial, Marxist, etc., etc. Or vice versa. You say, no, these are the different approaches that have approached Conrad, but I'm proposing a better approach, which is formalist, narratological, etc. Then it's your originality, your original approach that is going to show there. And then you go to the next chapters and then you develop with the help, of course, of your supervisor. Remember that the introduction and the conclusion are written last. I don't think there is disagreement between us. I heard Professor Kariemi said it's your choice, but for me, because usually the introduction is to introduce something that is already complete, and you cannot introduce your thesis before it has been finished. You need to finish all the chapters, then you come back, because in the introduction, what you do, you introduce the reader to the different chapters that you are going to, and you give like some kind of summaries to them. The conclusion also is written last. Once you conclude the work and you say, this is what I have achieved, and had I had 10 years working on this project, I would have done this and this, and I would leave this to maybe my future book, okay, or my future masterpiece. Okay. Review mechanics of writing before beginning the drafting. I think I've talked about this. Keep the MLA handbook as your Bible close to your pillow, under your pillow, so that you will be dreaming of writing like Shakespeare. It's every night you go to sleep. Before you launch into drafting, you must review the punctuation rules, the formatting rules, the paragraphing, the citing rules, paraphrasing rules, footnoting rules, block quoting rules, and connecting skills. Okay, I can't repeat this enough, because many of my students in the past really suffered a lot from these mechanics, and you're supposed actually to master these at much earlier level, like at starting semester 5, and then with your BA, and then with your master's master degree time. But unfortunately, very often, many students reach the stage of the doctoral research and they have mastered these techniques here. Mind you, English is particularly known for being very pragmatic, very specific about this. This is not negative about Arabic, but like take up a newspaper, or like even peer-reviewed publications in Arabic, and sometimes there is no punctuation for 10 lines or more than that, or you have a whole paragraph of maybe 20 lines, then you have one full stop at the end, etc. Okay, so again, as I said, this is not negative thing about Arabic, but we don't have this technology of the rules of writing in Arabic, and that's another question maybe the linguists need to address. Of course, I'm thinking also of the lack of capital letters and lowercase letters in Arabic, and etc. etc. A lot of things that are there in English and that have made English really what it is that you don't find in our mother tongue, other language. Okay, so the authors you read can also be, I conclude with this, the authors you read can also be an excellent source for writing skills. You need to keep your eyes open on the skills that are used by the writer you're reading. Try to emulate the professional writing of the people you are reading and you're citing, and to help you really write better. While reading your PDFs for content, of course, keep an open eye on the style and on the composition techniques adopted, and try to emulate that professional writing. Of course, definitely you're launching yourself on a long journey, research journey. It's a bumpy road. It's not easy, but definitely the harder you work, the more pragmatic, the more rational you're handling your topic, the better you will improve, and you will achieve really a good thesis about which you will be very happy, and you'll make, of course, everybody around you happy. Okay, good luck and take care. Back to you, Professor Bensoukas.
Okay, thank you, Professor Zurura, for your very rich and complete presentation of research methods. I think we'll have to close it. Before that, I would like to thank Professor Kariemi too for his nice presentation. And doctoral students, good luck and you take care.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye bye. Bye bye.
Take care.
Sure.